Hello everyone, welcome to another limited color palette video. Today I'm going to color this sketch using these three colors: Azo Yellow, PY 151, Indanthrone Blue, PB 60, and Winsor & Newton's Scarlet Lake PR 188. Let's start by creating some color swatches and mixes so that we don't have any surprises when we color the sketch later on. So this is Daniel Smith's Azo Yellow. This is a very strong and vibrant yellow. I think it's stronger compared to the Hansa Yellow medium that I usually use. Ink is not dried yet. This is Indanthrone Blue. This is a very deep and dark blue, like a darker version of ultramarine. And lastly, we have Winsor & Newton's Scarlet Lake. Now this color looks like Daniel Smith's version of Organic Vermilion, which uses the same pigment, PR 188. While we wait for the color swatches to dry, let's create some color mixes. So this is Azo Yellow. Let's mix it with a little bit of Scarlet Lake. Scarlet Lake is a very warm color, so you can get a very bright orange. Let's add a little more Scarlet Lake to make this warmer. So this is Scarlet Lake on its own. Let's see what happens when we mix Scarlet Lake with a little bit of Indanthrone Blue. Oops, I think this is too much. Let me just dilute this slightly. So let me just put more red and less blue. Indanthrone Blue is such a strong color. And lastly, we have Indanthrone Blue on its own. And this is how the greens look like when mixed with Azo Yellow. And let's see what happens when we mix the three colors together. So we have this. Now the red and the blues there are very strong colors, so I'm just going to use a tiny bit of the paint to get this mix. The swatches have dried nicely, so let's take a closer look. Now for the swatches on the left side, I use a bit too much water. The swatches have dried nicely, so let's take a closer look. So for the swatches on the left side, I have used too much water, so they appear to be lighter compared to the swatches on the right side, which are more intense. You can see the Azo Yellow here versus this swatch here, Indanthrone Blue versus this swatch here. The contrast is quite strong, and Scarlet Lake versus this swatch here. This is a very nice palette. I like the green. And if you want to paint the shadows for greens, like very dark leaves, you can add more Indanthrone Blue to get this darker shade. Azo Yellow itself, it's very strong, stronger compared to Hansa Yellow Medium, which I like a lot. So I may actually switch over to using Azo Yellow in the future. We have bright orange, really nice. Scarlet Lake. So the limitation of this palette is purple. The purples here, they are a bit muted. So these are the different shades of gray that we can get by mixing the three colors. And here I use a little bit more Indanthrone Blue, and there seems to be a lot more Azo Yellow here, so it's a bit greenish. This gray tone here, this is also mixed using the three colors, but it has more water, and I added a bit more Indanthrone Blue and less yellow, so it's a bit cool. And this is a lot of Indanthrone Blue with a little bit of Scarlet Lake. You can see some yellow in it as well, so you can get a very dark tone with Indanthrone Blue. Overall, this is a pretty versatile palette, except for purples. If you want vibrant purples, maybe you can add a cool red to this palette. Alright, let's color this. This is the reference photo that I used to draw this sketch. By the way, if you want to watch the drawing tutorial for this, you can check out the link in the video description below. And there's also a download link to this reference photo there as well. So this is a rather complicated scene to color. There are a lot of colors. There is strong contrast, strong sunlight coming from the right side. So the shadows are pointing to the left side, and you can see this side of the building is shaded and some here as well. There are a lot of details here, so it's not going to be easy to color. The white areas are this part here, this part here. Shadow areas are this part here. So yeah. My plan is to color the colors first and then add the shadows later, to glaze over the colors with the shadows. I think that might be easier. Let's start with the yellows. So this is Azo yellow for this signboard here. I want to add a little bit of red to it to give it some variation. And we have yellow for this taxi on the right side. Again, I want to add a little bit of red to it just to give it that variation. If it's just a flat color, it's not going to look pretty exciting. I'm looking at the reference photo and painting all the yellows that I can see. I try not to miss anything. I think that's about it. So the next, I will be painting with red. This person here wearing red. The lights are red. Some of the signboards are red. Next we have blue. And then we have green, so it's Azo yellow and Indanthrone blue for the green. This is the bus. So if I want a bright green, I would add more yellow to it. Some of the signboards are green as well. There are some trees behind that are green. Some of the plants here are green. I've just switched to a larger brush because I want to paint the warm browns. I've just switched to a larger brush because now I'm going to mix the three colors together to give me a gray, a warm gray that I'm going to use to paint on the left side. So let me just try and mix the three colors here. This is a bit too greenish, so let's see what we have. I think this looks fine. If you mix the colors too completely in your palette, it's going to look, I mean, it's best to let the colors blend on the paper. It's more fun, and you can see the individual colors that show that you use to mix the mix. If you mix it too completely on the palette, the colors will be too flat. I'm going to leave this part white and this part white as well. It seems like the sunlight is hitting the front of this building right here. So I want to leave this portion here bright and white, and this signboard as well. So for the ground, this is the same mix. So this is the first wash. Later on, I'm going to mix a darker wash to paint the shadows. This is just the sort of like the color for the road. Added a little bit of Indanthrone blue here, just to get that variation. For the building here, I'm going to use the same mix, but I'm going to add a little bit more paint to it. It seems like a bit greenish now, so I need to perhaps add a little bit more red to it. Some of the sunlight is hitting on the signboard, so we don't have to color everything. This brush that I'm using, this is a squirrel brush. It's great for painting large areas. This lamppost here goes up. And this building here, this building is a bit bluish. And there's this car here, which looks like a bit brown, so I want to mix this, let this be brown. Seems like there is some shadow cast on this building here. For the sky, it's going to be a bit bluish, and then I'm going to clean my brush, get some clean water and fade this into the white of the paper, and make sure that I do not go over the buildings. I'm going to pick up the excess water here. And now I'm going to mix the shadow. I'm going to use more paint because the shadows and the blacks, they are much darker. Let's start with the left side first. Now there are many interesting shapes here, so I'm going to try and follow the shapes that I see as much as possible. There's this part of the signboard that is covered by the shadow. I have two mixes here. One has more blue and one has more red. So as I'm painting, if I feel like I need to be a bit more reddish, I would dab my brush into the one that is more red and paint with that. So the sunlight is coming like this, so we need to get that shadow shape right. So maybe for this particular car, I want it to be a bit more bluish, and I can add a little bit more blue to it. For the strong shadow on the ground, I'm going to use a little bit more Indanthrone blue. The shadow starts here, right beneath the van here. I can use this same mix for the darker areas of the windows. And now I'm going to paint the blacks. I'm going to use a lot of Indanthrone blue and a little bit of Scarlet Lake. So for the shadows on the left side, I feel like I can make them a bit darker because when I look at the photo, the contrast seems to be quite strong. I mean, the contrast between the shadows and the lighted areas seems to be quite strong. So some of the areas I may want to paint them a bit darker, especially the bottom side of the signboards. This van here seems to be lost in a sea of grey, so I want to paint it a bit more bluish. And now for the finishing touch, I'm going to add some details to the signboard. This is the Derwent graphic line painter. I hope it hasn't dried on me yet. It's very difficult to write things like this with a brush. I can use this to add some words on the signboard as well. Just put some dots there, here and there. There are some lights in the bus. Let's see if I can get this pen working. And if the ink is opaque enough to go over the dark color. There are some road markings on the ground and they go to the vanishing point that is right here. So I'm going to paint that with white gouache. Have to get the perspective right. Alright, I think my perspective is a bit off. Doesn't matter. There's actually 2 rows of these white blocks, but I'm just going to draw 1 row. This line goes across to the right side, and there's this arrow. Seems to be another arrow here, but it's difficult to see. And lastly, I think this red light is lost, so I'm going to use a thick paint and paint over. This is the completed sketch. This is not an easy sketch to color because there is a lot of detail. There is a lot of little shapes to color, and the shadow shapes, they are actually quite complex, especially right here. Here's a closer look at the sketch. So the shadow shapes on the left side, they are really complex. Now for this area here, this is the most busy area of the sketch. I tried to simplify this as much as possible with my pen and ink sketch. And for the coloring, I basically just put depths of colors here and there. If I'm sketching this on location, this would be my style. It's very difficult to color within the shape unless you have a very sharp brush, and you will need a lot of patience to really color within the lines. So for me, an impression of the busyness is good enough. We have a lot more signboards here, and the white gel pen and the Derwent line painter, they work great for writing letters like this, for drawing very thin lines like this. This is the taxi. I added another shade here, which is a mix of the 3 colors, just to give it a little shadow here on this side. And for the wheels, you see those white lines, they were added with the white gel pen. This is white gouache. I really enjoyed painting this sketch using these 3 colors, using this limited color palette. It's quite versatile in my opinion. Before you go, I want to let you know that I am selling off some excess paint that I have to make way for space to get new colors to feature on my limited color palette videos. So if you want to help me out, you can check out the list of colors that I am selling. The link will be in the video description below, as well as the pricing and shipping information. Most of the paint I have are Daniel Smith. There are some other brands as well. I'm announcing this at the end of this video because I don't want to be overwhelmed with orders. Anyway, I only have limited stock, so while stocks last. So that's all for today's video. Thanks for watching. I hope it's helpful. See you in the next video. Bye!